last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Without further ado, let's welcome him to the show. Tim Horvath. What's going on, man?
Wow, that was electric. I got to say, for people at home, that was very impressive. That was first take, unblemished, no stuttering.
What are some things right now that you are seeing in the market with commercial real estate?
50% of commercial loans are coming due. The notes are coming due. When you're doing your cost basis analysis and your interest rates more than double, things are going to change, and that's going to create some turmoil within that market. And with turmoil comes opportunity. I'm a big believer of firsthand experience, so doing it to learn it. I was at a conference the other day. 3 on the board was one of the banks that have the largest holding of commercial real estate loans. One was a second, smaller one, and the third was a credit union. And when they were asked about lending an office space, they all said they wouldn't touch it. Before COVID, we could buy an empty building, fill it up, double the value of the building. And then COVID happened, and all these banks became concerned with being able to get occupancy rates. So then we could no longer buy a vacant building. You had to buy an asset that already had money producing revenue.
Right now, with the way it is, you have to have more to play with to be in the game.
They want to keep those people in their system that they know have performed time and time again. And that relationship can be the difference between you getting the deal and not. And that's a big deal.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially with even the smaller banks.
Mm-hmm.
Small banks are really good with the relationship-based industry.
I feel people should be educating themselves on the commercial office space.
Right now.
Right now.
Is the perfect
Now's the time
opportunity
to educate, right?
What have you seen with the opportunity in commercial land?
I think more opportunities are popping up on the land because people aren't able to develop the land at this point in time. So they're either off-selling or not as interested in it, because you do have that significant holding cost.
Well, we got the t-shirt here, the official Al Nicoletti Show.
I love it.
T-shirt. Yeah.
That's a good logo. I like that logo.
Yeah, you like it?
I do. Yeah. I really do.
Give you the mug.
Love it.
The official mug, so now you can drink your coffee in it, and you get a dose of me.
I love it.
Yeah.
Al, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, I do love your podcast. I love your energy. I love everything about it. So I'm honored to be here. So thank you.
No, thank you, man. I'm so glad we got to do this whole thing and make it happen. For more content on tonight's episode, make sure you go back and check out the Al Nicoletti YouTube channel, the Facebook page, the personal page, the Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti, and of course, you can find the Al Nicoletti Show on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Audible, which we found out in the first part of season 4, which was crazy. So you can find all the content that's out there, and you can find things on probates, quiet titles, and all the weird world things that we have on Shorts, Instagram, and all that stuff is dropping on Micro. So I want you to all stay tuned for this episode today. I am so excited for this episode because I haven't seen Gonzalo in a while, and I saw him at a couple events. We saw each other really quickly, but actually having a conversation with Gonzalo, I haven't been able to sit down with G for the longest time since I've been on the CashGeeks Show when we were all there with Dom, G, and Gary, and it's been a while. And I really want to catch up on what's been going on with G, CashGeeks, what's happened the last year, 2 years, and it's going to be an amazing episode. So you want to stay tuned, stay glued. I got my pen ready. I got the papers ready. I know there's a couple questions. I know specifically I got to ask G. So if you got any questions, drop the comments in the chat box. It's going to be interactive. So I hope you all enjoy. Let's rock this thing. Hey everybody, my name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate, and always bring the best in the business, the best that are crushing it in the real estate game, in the entrepreneur game, the mindset game, and people that are really making differences in the communities. We want to bring these people on because they can make differences to you and help impact your business, your life, and bring it all together on how you can take your company to the next level. I am so excited for tonight's episode. I can't wait to introduce G. It's crazy. The first time I actually met Gonzalo was when I had first moved to Jacksonville. And I remember going to one of the RIA meetups, the Jax RIA meetups. And I remember being in the classroom, and G was the instructor up there. And I remember I was at the time I was in the shirt, the tie, and I was doing the whole lawyer thing when I was out and about. And I remember Gonzalo was like, "We got to have lunch." And from then, took him up on that. We had lunch, and it's crazy the journey I've been able to witness G go through since being here in Jacksonville, what he was doing with RLA, and then they went to CashGeeks and what they were doing at CashGeeks. And I gotta say, of all the versions I've known of G, this version of G, I love the best. This is my favorite version because in the last year, I've been able to see he's grown to be a leader, an owner of a company, growing a team, being able to put the right pieces together, and actually forming his story. And I think that is so critical for people that are in our industry because we are all on a journey, we're all on a story, but finding yourself and finding your way and learning about what that process has been. And I can't wait to dive in because we've been in the studio and saving this moment to hear what's been going on in Gonzalo's world. And I want everybody to hear the story of G and what's been going on. So without further ado, let's welcome him to the show. Gonzalo Corzo, G of CashGeeks. What's up, baby?
Dude, happy to be here, man.
Yeah, man.
This is an amazing setup.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dude, it's funny. You took me back with that intro. I was like, damn, that's true. Yeah. It's been a long time since we've been able to sit down and catch up, man.
A long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even a couple times, the last time I remember, and it was great because I remember being here and it was a crazy day. I remember you called me or I called you and we were on the phone for 30 minutes and I got off and I remember thinking, wow, I can't even remember the last time we had a conversation outside of probate and a closing or something about what's going on in your business. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, I gotta have G on the show. This is a must. Man, take us through what's been going on in your world. How have things been in the last 3 years?
Dude, I know, right? It's crazy, man. Last 3 years have been a wild ride, man. Had a baby in December.
Congratulations.
So baby is now 9 months
Amazing.
old. And we had to pivot. Right. And I feel like that's the biggest thing in this last year. Right. It's crazy. It's been a year now. This year's passing by
Amazing.
crazy.
I know.
Man. It's insane, which is good because it's been a rocky year. Right. But essentially, I've been wholesaling now for 8 years and started CashGeeks in 2017. You brought up the RLA days. A lot of people don't even know RLA.
Yeah.
Man. So RLA was the original name of the company. Still is. CashGeeks is just a DBA.
Okay.
Still to this day.
I like it. Getting technical.
Yeah. So it's Regency Litho Assets, DBA CashGeeks. We also own CashGeeks LLC so that, no one takes it.
Right, of course.
But I don't really do anything there.
Yeah.
But we got to the point where we were selling to hedge funds, right? And we got the hedge fund bug. And we wanted to just go deep on selling properties to hedge funds. It was super easy, and it allowed us to expand and grow. And it was great while it lasted. We knew it wasn't going to last forever, but we also didn't expect it to turn off immediately overnight. And that is what impacted CashGeeks the most. So we got to our prime, man. We were doing, for the past 2 years, we've done over 300 deals a year. And I built up a massive company, had 28 employees in-house, 35 VAs, and we were just crushing it. And then interest rates started to creep up. Mm-hmm. All of my business was finding deals for hedge funds in about 14 different states. And one day we got a call in June, one hedge fund was like, hey, we're going to pause.
Last June, yeah.
Last year, right? Hey, we're going to pause. Buying for the next week. I was like, okay, that's weird, right?
Yeah.
And then another fund was like, hey, don't submit anything today. The higher ups are meeting, trying to figure out what's going on. Another fund was like, hey, we got a new buy box. We're no longer buying 1950s and newer. It's now 1980s and newer, right? And then the week later, hey, that 1980s buy box no longer good. 1995 and newer. So everything was just changing so quickly. We just wanted to pivot. So we tried to just change our buy box, right? Offer lower because they were coming in with lower offers now. And out of nowhere, nothing was working, right?
Even at lower numbers.
Even at lower numbers because we couldn't get deals at lower numbers, right? Everybody was like, hey, my house is worth $300,000.
Right.
You offered me $300,000 last week. Now you're offering me $270,000. What happened?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we tried offering lower, weren't getting enough deals. So now we're like, okay, let's pivot away from hedge funds and just go to, back to our bread and butter, backyard of Jacksonville, Florida, and let's just sell to flippers and landlords again.
Go local.
But the time between you pull a new list, get the data, start working it, start getting deals under contract when you have 28 employees and our expenses, dude, were like $250,000 a month.
Wow, that's insane.
And so as that's happening, you're bleeding, right? And you're trying to keep it alive, but then it got to the point where we had to make tough decisions, right? It was either, hey, we either keep waiting and we're going into winter in the worst year ever, right? Of our career.
Right.
And we just had to make some tough calls. And we had to put on the longevity hat, right? Of like, what's going to matter 5 years from now, not this year, right? And what's going to matter 5 years from now is us still being around. And if we're in this for the long run, then I can't go out of business, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so made some tough decisions, made some cuts, and that led to me and Dom deciding to part ways, right? And the reason we decided to part ways was we really helped each other when we were scaling a massive company, right? And right now, for me, it's not the time to grow a massive company. And I've been there, done that. I didn't really want to rebuild what we had to turn off, right? And so when there's lower volume, less deals, my goal now with CashGeeks is just to have I feel like I used to have the army of wholesaling, and now I just want to have the freaking Navy SEALs, right?
I like
Instead of having freaking 30 people, right? Let's just have 5 Navy SEALs to just crush it. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the past year, right? So in January, Dom and I parted ways.
Okay.
I completely took over CashGeeks. We still, still boys,
Yeah,
right? Till this day, we still own rentals together. We have other companies together. But just in the mission of CashGeeks and what we're doing, it just didn't align anymore. And so parted ways. And now we are just sticking to Jacksonville, Florida, all real estate, wholesaling, flipping, a little bit of buying and holding. And, you can do different things now when you have a smaller team, a more elite team. They don't need me all day, every day, right?
Gotcha.
They've been doing this for the past 3 years with me.
Right.
And so, kept some of the studs, right, of the team. And now we are just focused on still wholesaling, doing a little bit less of only wholesaling. We're doing a lot more flips and taking down houses, right? I've raised private money and we're just buying houses. So bought 10 houses last month from other wholesalers that we're going to fix and flip.
And keeping them. Are you going to
No, we're going to fix and flip.
Okay, so you're going to eventually list it and get it out there. Okay.
Yes. We put one under contract yesterday from a wholesaler. That one we're probably going to keep.
Okay.
Majority is going to be wholesale and flipping, keeping very few, but that's always going to be part of it, right?
Right. No, there's a lot to unpackage here. Like, there's a lot that I'm thinking in my mind about your whole journey. Let me go back to when you had the Army.
Yeah.
Let me go back to those days, because I remember the first geek office I remember was the one. It was the smaller one, but it was the one that you guys were first in. It was not the one that was off Bay Meadows or that area.
Right.
In that time, you had about 12, 15 people.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you guys moved to the new office. Then that grew. And then you went to the current, I guess it's the current office.
Yep.
And it was like jam-packed in there. It was
Yeah.
a whole bunch of people. And a lot of investors and a lot of people are in our industry. We see it on Reels and TikToks and people be on podcasts about scale up, scale. And everybody's always talking about scaling up. And like you said, you've been there, you've done that before. But one thing people don't talk about is the concept of scaling down. They don't talk about the weighing the pros and cons of should you go that direction. And some are like scared about it. They almost look at it as like, they're losing business if they have to scale back and scale down employees. You saw it from a perspective of actually this is going to benefit us But take me back to that moment when you had to make those decisions of, we scaled this much, now we have to scale this like down, and hindsight's 2020. I'm so glad we did. What was that whole mind process that was going through your head? Like every day you're waking up, is this going to work? Is this going to do it? What's going to happen? Is this going to be successful? Is it not? Or no, this is going to be the best move. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, so I feel like what most people don't talk about is why they're scaling up, right? And so I had to identify why I had what I had. And when I really thought about it and dug deep, it's all ego. Most people want to scale up and they're scared to scale down because they're no longer going to be doing the revenue numbers that they were doing before. They're no longer going to be able to say, I did this many deals this year, right? And at least that's what it was for me.
Gotcha.
Right? And so when I identified why I'm doing all this, we talk about money. We're doing this for money and freedom, and time freedom, right? But when you're scaling and growing, you're barely making any money,
right?
Because you're just putting it all back into the business,
right?
And you have no time because you have a company of 30 people that you have to lead, right? And so scaling down for me was, it was just a numbers decision, right? Most people think that, hey, if you make $4 million a year, you're caking it, right? But if you only keep 25% of that, you know what I mean? You're keeping $1 million.
Of course.
Right? And so I know very much smaller operations that are keeping $1 million. And so when you just look at the numbers, that's what made me decide to go this route. But also I was forced to scale down, right? Because of what was going down in the industry and interest rates changing, hedge funds disappearing. Now I have to scale down. I have no option.
Right. And that's what makes it really intriguing, is because you didn't have a choice.
Yes.
And I bet at the time, if you did, you weren't even thinking about scaling down.
Correct.
It was to get even bigger and bigger.
Absolutely.
But then now that you did that, you're like, well, wait a second. Actually, we're in a better position than we were before just because of how the expenses were.
Yes.
Right. And so back then you said, what, $250K a month in expenses? Yeah. I mean, how much did you cut it down when you sized down? Like, what were the overhead expenses then?
Oh, dude, I mean, our expenses now are probably about 35, 40K a month now compared to 250 grand. Yeah. So the pressure of, you know, like most people in the wholesale game, they want to get to the point where they're like, anybody who wants to scale up, they're like, I want to hit 6 figures, right? It's scary for me now talking about it, but we were forced to make multiple 6 figures. We didn't have an option but to close over 250 grand a month if I wanted to make money. Right?
Yeah.
Because the first 250 grand that goes out the door. That goes into marketing, all the employees, commissions, building the office, all that stuff, right? And hiring people for the future of the business, right? We were trying to hire up. Right? That's something that everybody talks about. When you scale, you hire up. It's who, not how, right? And so we were getting these elite people in our company, and you know, it really sucked to have to scale down. But now looking back at it, if I look at the pressure of having to close 10, 15, 20 deals a month, right? Everybody's like, man, I would love to get there. But I got to the point where I had to close 20 deals a month. And it's crazy, right? To even say that.
Yeah.
And so now, knowing that I don't have to do much, you get that freedom and that creativity. And you make things happen out of things that I couldn't do before. Because when you have so many employees and you have a mission, you have to say no to so many things, right? Because you have a mission. And there's good and bad with that. But now I have the ability to say yes to a couple other things. Like, dude, it's freaking middle of the day. Like, I'd never be able to do a podcast in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you would have asked me then, I'm like, dude, I have to do it during lunch.
Yeah.
Right? Like, on my lunch break, I can maybe do a podcast, right?
And then maybe reschedule and do it later.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so now I can actually do things like this in the middle of the day, right? So because of that, things are coming to me. Different business opportunities, different partnership opportunities. and I can start to say yes to a lot of things that I used to have to say no to, right? And I love that feeling, right? And now I look at myself as more of an investor as opposed to a wholesale business owner.
Interesting. New perspective for you on that.
New perspective for sure.
So when you're talking scaling down to these deals, and I can tell you this from personal perspective, like of scaling up my law practice.
Yep.
I've definitely noticed that when you scale up and you get, more deals, it's higher volume. And so obviously you got more, and you get to a point of like, how much do you want everything? And then you start cherry picking in what you want. But when you get to a scale down method, you definitely are cherry picking. And I feel like you went from having to take everything on because of those expenses to taking what you really want on now.
Absolutely.
And getting more higher quality, bigger spread opportunities, and not feeling like you have to solve this problem, solve that problem to make quota before. Now you got the Navy SEALs, and the Navy SEALs are able to have that specialization. And this is a great deal because the spread is 60, 70,000 versus 5 little deals that are all going to be insane, that are going to make 10K spreads. And like, what a mess.
And those are always the headache.
Oh, the headaches.
Yeah,
Title,
absolutely.
liens.
Correct.
So you, and now seeing that has opened up opportunities for you to be able to go places, meet with these people, get in on joint ventures. And I think that's just such an inspiring story, because when you first hear about it, you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like what's, is it the market? Is it the Fed? But really they are business decisions that are to, like you said, you called it the longevity hat.
Yeah.
It is to ensure that you're going to sustain this and last as a company, as a brand throughout the storm.
Exactly.
Throughout the Fed raising stuff. And let me ask you this, because that's the scaling down, scaling up part. But the thing with Dom, was that more of a vision thing as partners of where things were kind of going, where he saw things going, you saw things going? Because, we've had how many meetings at Yellowbird, and Pat and Kyle have talked about it. I know people have been on my show. I'm sure people have been on your show. That the concept of partnerships is it's a deep concept for people, because they go out to the meetings and, hey, let's partner on this deal. Hey, let's get in on this deal. But it's like there's so many more, components, like different personalities, different perspectives. Was it vision? Was it just really the market bottoming out with people not buying? What was that whole focal point?
Yeah, so it was absolutely vision. We made all the tough decisions and then started to get in a groove of work. And then that's like, once you have that breathing room, because when you have so much going on, you don't have breathing room. You don't have time to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I don't have time to think like that. I need to close 30 deals this month. Right. And so once you have that breathing room, it was absolutely vision. It was almost like when you lose it, you go to build it back up. You start to ask, why? Mm-hmm. Why do I want to build this back up? Do I really want to do this again? How do I want to do it different? How, should we do it different? And so that's when the vision of, all right, well, what are we going to do this time around? Right. How are we going to grow the company this time? Are we going to still do wholesaling? Are we going to just focus on Jacksonville? Are we going to stick to all the markets that we were in, wholesaling to hedge funds? And so that's really what caused us to part ways, was more of the alignment of what's going to happen to CashGeeks. It was just different, right? And it was also like undetermined. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the vision is for CashGeeks, right? I think I have an idea of it, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's also a weird year, right? It's a weird market. Like things aren't steady yet, right? And so I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think that was mainly, it wasn't really like the vision changed or we didn't align on the vision. It's, we didn't know what the vision was. And so if we don't know what the vision is, like, we shouldn't just do this to do this,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Right.
And so that's kind of, I would say it was almost a lack of vision where we both knew that we could each be very successful on our own or together. And with this kind of like lack of vision, and also, dude, like there's a lot internally that you are dealing with when you are going through all this. Nobody thinks it's a scaling down thing. Everybody thinks it's, dude, they're going to crap.
Right.
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 And so, and you have to like deal with that internally. Like, damn, did I mess up? Did I make the wrong decisions? Right. In June, should I have started to do this? And what do I do? Like, I was always the guy who walked into the room and was doing the most deals.
Right.
Now I'm not. What does that mean? Right. Like, did I fail?
Yeah.
Right. And
right.
so you have to, we were kind of going through that, I feel, internally together without really talking about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kind of led to, well, what do we do? Right? Like, are you going to be the manager on acquisitions and am I going to do this? And like, I was like, to do what I want to do, like, we don't really need each other, you know? Like,
Yeah.
we can do it together and it's awesome. But if we're just going to do real estate deals and not build a massive corporation, then you can go do deals, I can go do deals, right? Like,
right.
there's not really this vision of why we need each other, right? And so, don't get me wrong, dude. Like, there's no way I could have built Cash Geeks without Dom. Like, Dom was the guy who I remember, like, you know, dude, I partnered up with Dom when I was 20,
Wow, that's crazy.
almost 21, right? And so, when I partnered up with Dom, like, Dom was the guy who you know, he had successful businesses in the past. So I just remember our first check coming in, and this was when I was off on my own, right? Because I had been wholesaling, but I was working for another company. So when the deal closed, that was X amount of dollars. That wasn't going in my pocket. I was just getting a little commission, right? These deals were now the first couple of deals that I'm doing on my own. That check hits, that's all my money, right? And I'm 21, 20. I'm like, let's enjoy it, right? And
good.
Dom was like, hey, man, let's hire people. It's like, all right, dude, that's our first check. Yeah, well, you don't need anything. I'm not taking anything. So Dom wasn't taking money. I was barely taking money. And it was just like, let's build this thing massive, right? And systems, processes. All I really brought to the table was the real estate connections and the real estate knowledge. And Dom just put it all into a massive company, right? Amazing. And so we really helped each other with what the vision and mission was. As soon as that changed, we could do it together. We don't need to do it together. And there's also that burnout, dude, of like, I've been doing deals, like we've done over 1,100 deals now in 5.5 years.
Crazy.
Closed 1,100 deals.
That's impressive.
And that is a lot of work. It is a lot of mind-boggling shit, right? Like, dude, just putting out fires every day. Right. There's no chill when you're doing, you know, when you're doing 300 plus deals a year, those are closed. In order to close 300 deals, you need to lock up 500, 600 contracts. So you're putting out 500 fires and it's just 300 that make it to the finish line. So imagine getting to the office every day, knowing I have to motivate my staff to go crush it. And then I have to meet with the transactions department to put out fires left and right. Hey, seller wants to back out. Hey, title came up with this. And now we have to creatively think, how do we fix this problem 15 times a day, right? And when you're doing that for 6 years, it was like, all right, now I'm forced to have breathing. Like, it forced me to have breathing room, and I kind of enjoyed it, right? It's like, okay, wow, I got to the office and there's no fires today, right? And so, not saying that there shouldn't be fires, right? Because you want activity.
Right.
But going from, holy crap, I have 30, dude, we got to the point where we had, at our peak, we had almost 200 properties under contract at once. Whether it was before we had gotten in to look at them, selling them to hedge funds, trying to find buyers, under contract to close in escrow, we had 180 something deals under contract.
Like on one particular day, you had that much going
Correct.
on. And that was Florida or nationwide?
That was 14 states.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, like, dealing with that it's a lot. And so I also feel like there's like burnout, right? Where it's like, okay, we've been doing this for a long time, and I kind of want to figure out if I want to keep doing this, right? Like, I don't know if I want to keep doing it. It comes second nature now, but I also want to figure out what else to do, right? Like, I love flipping houses, right? Like, flipping houses is awesome. It's a whole different beast, different animal, but I don't have to deal with sellers when I flip houses. I don't have to, you know what I mean? Like, all these things that, like, I feel like I have burnt out a little bit. And I feel that, you know, it's kind of unspoken with Dom, but I feel like that with him too. Like, he probably felt that too, right? Like, dude, we've done a lot of shit. And I don't know, like, because it wasn't like we were netting millions of dollars each, right? It was like, wow, we're bringing in a lot of revenue. We're reinvesting into the company. So whatever's left that we can take, the immediate thought is like, well, if I'm only really netting this from what we've built, we could go net this in a heartbeat. Right. Like, if I'm netting 300 grand a year, dude, I could do 300 grand by myself in a month. Right. And that's not, you know, to brag or anything like that. It's just, I've been in the industry locally for 8 years now. So I get phone calls left and right. Hey, G, I need to sell a house. Can you help me? Hey, I heard you're the person to buy houses from. And so, like, even if I spent no money in marketing, I'd be able to do deals because I've put in the work, right? Oh, it's amazing, right? But then you always have those thoughts of like, well, dude, I'm bringing in $4 million a year, and, you know, we're keeping 300 to 400 grand a year each. Like, why don't we just go and just make 300 and 400 grand a year and be done by Q1 and go chill for the rest of the year? Right. So you have those thoughts. And so you're like, and then, and that kind of guided us to like, why don't we just do our own thing? And like, you know, if I want to keep, I wanted to keep the brand and keep the company. I just feel like it's who I've been forever. It's what I am still to this day. And I knew that there was going to be a change in the business. I didn't know what it was going to be. And I love the name. I love the brand, right? We had to rebrand, actually.
That's great. I love it.
New logo.
I love the logo.
No more geek.
Okay.
We got in trouble with the geek.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that a whole story too?
Bro, so I got a random text one night from a good buddy of mine, and he's like, yo, just so you know, this other person is asking around on who is the owner of CashGeeks because they're infringing on their trademark.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, appreciate the heads up.
What, the glasses?
The glasses with the house.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And
that's
so
crazy.
Damn, I was like appreciate the, I know, right? So I was like, I appreciate the heads up. Next day I get a text that is like, hey, I've heard nothing but great things about you. I've asked around. I know you guys are great people. I hate to do this, but we're gearing up to do a bunch of stuff with this brand, and your logo looks exactly like my logo. And I've had it trademarked since like 2014. And we were just in the middle of the trademark process for it. And so he's like, you got to change the logo, man.
Straight up.
Yeah. And I tried to ask, you know, I was like, dude, I was like, bro, I've had this logo for 5 years. Like, and they're more in the real estate education space.
Okay.
So it was more towards my podcast. And I was like, dude, I'll change the name of the podcast. Like, you know, like I've had this brand locally, whatever, the geek, it's a thing, right?
It's a thing.
And, you know, I respect him, man. He defended his brand, and he was like, no, man, you know, you got to change it. So had to change it.
No licensing option on the table. Hey, we'll pay you this royalty amount for it.
It wasn't even like, I feel like I don't know. I'm a big believer of like things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And so like this year, as I'm going through a new transition and parting ways with Dom and revisioning what's the vision of CashGeeks, right? Like screw it. Let's rechange the logo. Let's do it all.
Yeah, let's
right.
do
We're
this
all
thing,
changing
yeah.
everything. Like, let's just freaking new logo. Let's rebrand. Let's figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have a new logo now.
I love it.
Yeah.
It looks great. Yeah. I mean, it looks clean, sleek, and it's got the whole point. Your cash
Yeah.
geeks and your home buyers.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's all about branding.
No, I appreciate it, man. So,
Gee, let me ask you this question. So, like, I don't know what you're doing today or how you're doing it, but like, what are some steps you're taking to try to find what that vision is? A lot of people, I don't know how to describe it, but one thing I have learned throughout my whole health journey is the concept of change, and how a lot of people, they talk about wanting to change, and you got to change, you want to change. But I believe that change in that vision doesn't happen without the little steps you do along the way that are consistent. You stick to it. You got your principles. You have your culture in place, and that ends up being the change, right? Same thing with vision. Vision does change, and it takes the little steps along the way for you to realize what that is. Are you going and taking more time off to think about it? Are you doing things throughout your day that you notate down about, like, ooh, that is a purpose. That is a purpose of why I want to do this. Or I start seeing certain things and I'm like, that's what I wanted to go to. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You start getting to a point of, I start seeing it because of all the things I'm doing, and that's the purpose.
Right. So I would say for me, I am also growing up. I'm becoming a man, I feel, right? Like, I'm 27 years old now, and I had a baby in December. And when you have a baby, it changes your perspective of family, right? Before you have, I have my wife, love her to death. She supports me to everything. But it doesn't really feel like a family, right? You have your wife and we're a couple, but that's not family. Mm-hmm. And now that I have a baby, all I'm thinking about is family. Now I'm building a family. And so because of that changes my day-to-day grind, right? Before, CashGeeks was my baby, right? And so when you wake up, you have nothing to think about. All you're thinking about is building the company, making as much money as you can while you're young, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And now, like, there was no external thing calling for me, right?
Right.
And so because I now have a baby, now you want to be at home more, right? Now you want to go on vacation more. And not just with the baby, but also with the wifey now, right? With the wifey, I want to spend more time with my wife now, because now it's a family, right? And now we are, like, envisioning how I want my day-to-day to be. And I feel like that is causing the change of the vision, right? And I know that I can't just not work, right? I have to have something going on. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out, right? Like, how do I blend a lifestyle-driven business, because I know myself, I know what I have the potential of being and doing, and I know how people come up to me after I speak or whatever, and this isn't me saying this, I'm just repeating what people have told me, but I've changed so many people's lives, right? From just speaking at an event, I say this thing, I see them at an event, 6 months later, like, yo, I saw you speak at this thing, I implemented that, I made X amount of dollars from it, thank you so much, you changed my life, right? And so not many people can do that. Just because you have a very successful business doesn't mean you can go out there and, like, have a deeper purpose, right? And I feel like I have a deeper purpose. I don't know what that is, right? Like, in real estate, it's all like real estate education, right? I don't know if I want to be an educator, right? Like a real estate educator. But I know that whenever I speak, I make it an impact, right?
Right.
And so whether it's with the RIA, right? With the RIA, I feel like I play a big role in the RIA, right? And the RIA plays a big role in my life, right? And especially in the beginning, right, of my real estate career. And so like, I don't know if it's like community, some sort of community thing, right, that makes this funner, right? Like, and you know this now by like going to events and speaking and all this, right? Like it makes the journey funner. And it makes the journey like easier because you don't have, at least for me, right? I got into the game when I was 19 years old. So I don't have friends from before, right? Like all my friends are real estate friends, right? And then you go to in these rooms where you start traveling and meeting people. Like all of my buddies are successful real estate investors all over the country, right? And so I feel like pushing myself to a higher purpose because you do have the ease of just chilling, right? Like because you have to find that, at least this is what I'm trying to figure out, right? What is that perfect balance of chilling, but also building something? Because I feel guilty being this young with this much knowledge and business experience and deal experience and connections nationwide to just chill. And that's the guilt. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. Right. And so like you feel guilty of chilling because I know so many people would die to be in my shoes. Right. We're like, I would love to have done 1,100 deals and I can go take over the world now. Right. And so I feel guilty of not thinking of a higher purpose, but also wanting to chill with the family. And so that is how I'm trying to align my vision. And I don't know exactly what that is just yet, but I know that it has to do with real estate and buying houses. Right. Whether that's wholesaling, flipping, buy and hold, whatever it is, like just buying houses is just comes naturally. And it's all I know. It's what I've done my entire adult life. And I'm feeling a thrill of actually buying houses, right? Like I've been wholesaling for so long where I looked down because you have to convince yourself that you're doing the right thing, right? And so I used to look down on flippers, not in a bad way, but just like, why would you freaking do that? Like, why would you take down a house and do all that? Like, I can just flip the contract and make money way quicker. Like, that's so dumb, right? And so now, like, I'm actually taking down houses, and now it's like just that thrill of owning a house, buying the house, controlling the asset, not worrying about like, because when you're wholesaling, like you have that contract, but it's not done until it's closed. When you own the house, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to worry about the seller. Like, hey, what's going on? Why are you coming back and forth so many times? Hey, what's happening with this? Whatever, right? Like, once you own the asset, you can do whatever you want with it. And so I'm enjoying that. I feel good about leveraging my local connections and being able to buy houses from the local community, whether it's seller direct or from other wholesalers or realtors, right? Most of the deals that we're buying to flip are from other wholesalers and realtors. And so I think that's the vision, right? Flipping some houses every year. When I say some, like, probably want to do around 50 to 70 flips a year. Maybe do 50 wholesales a year. And that keeps me going. And that's kind of what I'm envisioning the mission is. I can't just do that overnight to just go chill with the fam, right? That takes time. That takes being involved in figuring out the new projects of, all right, well, now we're rehabbing houses, right? Nobody in my office has anything to do with flipping houses. It was all acquisitions, disposition, transaction coordination. Now we need a project manager and like a realtor to list the houses and staging and all that stuff. And so these are new challenges. I can't just say, hey, figure it out, right? I have to figure it out. And so those are the things that I'm doing. How do I want my company to be? But how can I use that to have a lifestyle that I want? And before I used to think like, screw lifestyle. Like lifestyle is dumb. If you want lifestyle, like you're going to be broke, right? You work hard. You wake up at 6 a.m. and you grind till 6 a.m. And then the next day you do it again. and like you sacrifice everything. And I did that. And now I don't have that desire of like sacrificing everything and grinding all day and whatever. It's like, I want to go shoot some guns in the middle of the day. Let's go to the range and go shoot some guns, right? Why? Because it's fun and we can do this, right? And so that's how I'm trying to create my vision, is figure out how can I make the business work for me without being too lazy. And it's a struggle. Yeah.
Creating your life and building your business around that.
Exactly.
Create your schedule, create your time blocks, create your things with your family, friends, and the time, like on a Friday afternoon, nothing's coming on, there. I call them no-go zones. Actually, I implemented that in my business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do some pretty big time blocks on things.
Yeah.
I don't know if the staff likes it, but it is the way it is. And I call them no-go zones. You do not book anything there, because in my world, I want to create my life and I want to build my business around that.
Yeah.
Because a year to 2 years ago, it was chaotic. There were many times that before I did a podcast show, I'd have consults right up to that show.
Yep.
I mean, I would be talking to people when I'm at an event, and now it's more like the events, no appointments unless specific, and I see that. This is why I said on the beginning of the episode, it didn't take me more than 5 minutes on the phone with you a month or so ago to realize that this is the best version of G that I have heard.
Yeah.
Because I can tell the maturity process you've had to go through, from the scaling up, all the team meetings that you were all doing, all the trainings. I mean, you were ramping. Every week was like a Monday we do this, a Tuesday we do that, a Wednesday we do happy hour. And it was like crazy. It was like what implementations you were doing. And I could just tell, just talking to you, is like so much just changed with you. And I love this. You have this idea of there is a lifestyle, that there is time that you can take with family for you to go do things. And, you're in the middle of a day doing a podcast and realizing that I don't want to be in that burned out position. I don't want to have those moments of, I don't like this anymore. You love buying homes. You love being a part of the Cash Geeks. You love having family time. And I think a lot of people don't talk about like all this. And that's why for me on the show, like even a lot of parts of the show has changed from, I don't like doing all the time, how do you make $100,000 in 30 days?
Right.
I like hearing the story. I like hearing like what's going on and what's happening. For some people it's working in data, but like for you, it's changing mentally. I feel like I feel like you're embracing the mental side right now.
Yes.
To what's going on in G's maturing mind and growing. And I love it. I love what where you're going with this with Cash Geeks.
It's a new season, right, in my life, and that's the way that I'm perceiving it, right? It's like I had the grind season. Don't get me wrong, I'm still grinding every day, right? But I'm not grinding just to grind, right? I'm grinding with a purpose of I have a kind of, to go back to what you said earlier. Now that I'm thinking about it, like the way that me and Hayden, right? Because Hayden is now my business partner in Cash Geeks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So me and Hayden, the way that we're aligning things and trying to figure out is like, what is our income goal that makes us happy? But it's not something that we need to grind 24/7 to, because we know we can grind 24/7 and go make a ton of money. That's not what we need to do, what we want to do. What is our income goal? What is our net goal? Right? Because you have income and this is what you keep, right? And then there's our investment goal. What do we want to buy every year? Because we both align with, we need to set something up for our future, right? And then there's, and this is going to sound crazy, but the last one was hobbies and community. That's literally how we're aligning and creating our business, right? It's like income, net. Before we just talked about income. We never talked about net. No one cares about net. Are you paying the bills? Awesome.
Right.
Screw it.
Yeah.
Then you're good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because we were not really netting much, we didn't have the ability to go buy rentals. Because it takes money to go buy real estate.
Right.
Right? And so all of this now is leading to how I'm thinking now. Income, net, investments, hobbies. I never talked about hobbies at all in my life before.
Yeah.
Right. And like now, like you talk about time block, like my wife has a time blocked thing for me where, because I like to play instruments, right? I have piano at the house, guitar at the house, whatever. And so like she has my time block where like, all right, you just do music during this time, right? Just for shits and giggles, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, dude, a lot of right now, what is helping me and guiding me through this is my wife. Like, I've taken her to so many of these events and personal development stuff, and like, there's so many things that I used to think are like so cheesy, right? It's like, why would I do that? Like, I don't want to do that, whatever. Right? It's like, dude, I'm making millions a year, bro. Like, whatever, right? Like, I'm not gonna do this exercise of happiness exercise, right? Like, screw that, right? And through all of this, my wife has just been like, well, what makes you happy? Right? Because it was a big mental breakdown when it all changed.
Right.
Your identity is now you're in an identity crisis, right? Like, and you think so much about other people. How are people going to perceive me? Right? Like, I'm perceived as X in the community, in their industry, and blah, 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 blah. And now if they hear about this, now they're going to think, oh, this or whatever.
Right.
And so you're just so worried about that. And you're also worried about, like, am I making the right decision? Should I have done all that? Should I have just pushed on the gas a little bit more, right? Did I just get freaked out? Did I get scared? Whatever. And so during that time, like, I did have to take a freaking week off. I was just like, dude, middle of the day on a freaking like Tuesday, like, I'm getting questions about business and blah, 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 blah from the team. And like, I just can't even think about whatever because my mind is on like, what am I doing with this business? Should I turn it off? Should I turn it on? Should I press on the gas more? Like, how much money's in the bank account? Whatever, right? Like, that's all I'm thinking about. What do I do with my life? And so I just had to disappear for a week. And in that week, my wife was like helping me navigate and guide what I want out of my life. Amazing. And so she's been like a freaking rock through all this. And like just being there for me no matter what. Like, babe, I love you whether we're doing 100 deals a year or we do 2 deals a year, right? Like, that doesn't matter, right? What matters is you being happy and the family being happy, right? And obviously paying the bills, right? So you got to pay the bills, right? Yeah. But once the bills are paid, like, what do you want to do, right?
Right.
And so that, I would say, has tremendously helped a lot in this maturity of me. Is like, me and my wife have really come together as like husband and wife, mom and dad now, right? Amazing. And now we have to do these things. Now I can't just be like, oh, well, if I don't, if I'm just grinding, I have 20 years to grind.
Right.
So if I fail, make the wrong decision, I'm fine. Now I can't fail and make the wrong decisions. I have a freaking baby.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my baby needs me to not make the wrong decisions, and make calculated decisions. And so that's all that matters now. And my wife has just been freaking rock through all this. Yeah.
Amazing. And again, I can see that the mental side has really been a important side for you in all of this. Finding the happiness and finding your purpose and finding what you want to do, like what makes G tick, what makes you grind and go. I mean, the real estate side, but also you have to do the things that make you recharge as well, so you can do those things and then take the time to build connections out in the community, right?
Absolutely.
You have to go out there, and do that. And I love what you were saying. It's like, now that you've been able to do this, you've been able to enjoy more time, meeting up with people, going to the RIA meetings and speaking at different places, and the impact that's having. And I feel like the more you do that, the more you'll see that impact in how people will be like, I learned this, I learned that, or just a recognition by name of like, oh my gosh, I saw this video, or this little clip of you talking about that. It's the craziest thing when you go out there and you're just like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you watch me? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Where'd you see it? What video was this? So I think that's going to be a phenomenal course for you to realize and take on and absorb that in, and what that is going to be, because that's a whole new adventure. It's a whole new journey in what you're doing. Let me ask you this, because we got to plug the Cash Geeks show. I mean, we got to plug that.
That's true. Yeah.
If you're not tuning in on Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m., you got to tune in. G hosts the Cash Geeks podcast, brings on the biggest names in the industry, talking about everything in real estate, entrepreneur stuff. I love what they're doing out there. You got to make sure you check that out. And shout out to Mike, my producer, G's producer. He's always back there. I love it. Mike's doing a killer job back there. So how's the show morphed? Like, has that also been a thing too, of like the direction of the show, and like when you and Dom split on the vision, like, because he was doing I've been on 3 episodes podcast so far with you guys. It was Dom twice and then us collectively.
Yeah.
And I know Dom was doing it for a while, but then you step back in. Like, what's been going on there? Because let me tell you something. You already know, but like doing the show is its whole own animal.
Oh yeah.
It's like
if I didn't have Mike, dude, I would not be doing the freaking podcast.
Oh yeah, it's epic. I love it.
But I mean, yes and no. Like, the vision of the show kind of changed a long time ago, right? Because the reason the show came about was Dom and I were trying to be real estate gurus. We got big into coaching. We had coaching programs. We were doing events. And so we actually decided to do it actually wasn't a podcast. It was the Dom and G show.
Yeah.
Right? And we were just talking about wholesaling. And every Tuesday we'd talk about some sort of subject of wholesaling. And we decided to not go deep into coaching because we thought it was easier, right? In the beginning, it's easy because everybody wants to learn from you from your own network. But once you teach them, now you have to go sell strangers on learning from you, right? And so now it becomes a thing where like, okay, well, now we have to do webinars. And if we're going to do webinars, now we have to start doing, and so it just became a whole thing. And we started to go down that path. And then our wholesale business started to, lack income,
right?
Because now we're doing this thing. So we decided to put that away. But we loved the Tuesday night thing, right? It was just, it impacted every time we would talk to people or the community or it brought deals, whatever. So we're like, let's just keep that and let's turn it into a podcast. And so the vision changed then with the podcast. The podcast is now more of picking other people's brains on what they're doing in the industry. And so I wouldn't say that the podcast vision has changed too much with this whole transition. It's been more of how can I bring people who are really doing deals? I would say that maybe one thing that has changed is I'm no longer interested in, kind of like you said, like, how are you doing 100K in 3 weeks, right? Like, or the software and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Like, I don't care about that stuff anymore, right? And so, maybe the conversations that we've been having have been a little more deeper, like this.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Maybe some more mindset stuff, and I feel like a lot of it has, I've gone through this weird transition, but a lot of wholesalers and investors out there had to pivot, right? I'm not the only one that like, oh, dude, I lost half of my squad, and now we're no longer doing this, and blah 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 blah. So many people had to change their business because of what happened, right? And so that is a lot of, when your business changes, your business is you as entrepreneurs, our business is us. So when our business change, we change. And I feel like that's been a lot of the topics on the show, right? It's like, well, I'm changing, right? And not just me, everybody's kind of changing. And, I'm part of a lot of mastermind groups, and one of the ones that I attend, it's a very common theme right now of like everybody trying to figure out what they want to do when they grow up, right? Like, we've all been doing this thing, and when you get slapped in the face for the first time, really slapped in the face, right? Not just a bad month, but just like, now you have to change everything that you thought you knew no longer works. You can keep trying it and you see it's not working. So now I have to change. I have to pivot. Because of that, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And so now it's like, well, what do I want to do when I grow up? And that's a very common theme in a lot of my mastermind groups is like, now that I've learned all this and made all this money and blah, 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 I have choices now. Before you didn't have choices. Before it's just like you grind and you do deals, right? So now that you have a choice, it's like, well, I don't know what to do. Should I chill? Should I play hard? Is it still a good time in the market to do this and not? And so I feel like that has been maybe a little bit more of the conversations that are happening in the show. And I love it. You know, I still, I mean, I've done that every Tuesday for the past like almost 4 years now, dude. It's crazy.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy.
It's commitment.
The show started in that very first office. That was 4 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. I remember the People's Wholesalers.
The People's Wholesalers. That's what it was. Yeah.
It was going on.
That's
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
You guys were there. I was like, wow.
That was our coaching brand and all that. Yeah, the People's
Crazy.
Wholesalers. And then when we decided to get rid of that, we were like, well, let's just piggyback it off of Cash Geeks, right? Because if that's what we want to focus on, let's do this show and just piggyback it off of that. So it was the Cash Geeks Network.
Yeah.
Right now, that's the podcast.
Yeah.
And I love it, man.
It's great. I mean, I love seeing that it's going. Like
Yes.
it's like it's moving and it's morphing and going into that direction, like you're saying. And it's just crazy too. It's been going on that long. Like I remember I don't know when it was, but I remember talking to Mike about like I remember when you and Dom were doing the People's Wholesaler show, and you weren't bringing on guests at the time, but it was just you and Dom. And I remember some of those episodes were like, I mean, you were on live for an hour. I mean, it had to be an hour. And you guys talked back and forth the whole time. Like, it was, like, so engaging. I was like...
Oh, dude, it was a blast.
It was, like, crazy, you know?
That's really where me and Dom became, like, boys, right? Because now it's, like, we're hanging out every Tuesday night. You know, we have to do dinner. Then we have the show. And in the show, you're kind of playing off each other, you know, hanging out. And then you do that enough every single freaking Tuesday for a year.
Yeah.
That's when I feel like our personalities really made the best out of each other, right? And then it became more fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the People's Wholesalers, man, that was back in the day, dude.
Yeah, it was a thing.
It was like a talk show. It was more of like a talk show in the beginning, right? Because it was just us two doing our thing.
Yeah.
And then when we decided to not do the People's Wholesalers, do the Cash Geeks Network, we were still talking about wholesaling. But after so many episodes, you run out of things to talk about. Yeah. So we're like, we should just start interviewing people. We can never run out of people to interview. So this is perfect. And then that's when it became a podcast.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember all those days. It was crazy. The chat box was always going straight down. I remember so many people I connected with just even from seeing that. I was like, oh, I saw this person watching it, and then I saw that person out. So I'm so happy the Cash Geeks podcast I on. Yes. It's going. And
shout out to Mike.
Shout out to Mike right there.
Keeping it alive.
He is doing it. He's doing it. I love it, G. I mean, we were already an hour in. It doesn't even feel like an hour.
Jesus.
I mean, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
I love hearing the story about where your mind is at.
Yeah.
And how it's not just about deals, and it's not about I did 10 deals last week and here are the case studies. Like it's a real deep analysis on what's going through your mind. And I think and I feel like you're also going through more of a reflection of self-awareness and vision and all that. But it's definitely something to reflect on. It's reflecting on where you were, what happened, and where you are now and where you're going. And I love it, man. I could do a whole episode with you because I would want to know like how things go with the hiring stuff.
Yep.
You know, how you morph into more team training again, because that was a whole thing with you guys for so long.
And I took the whole company shooting guns.
Really?
Yeah, that's we do fun activities. This morning we brought in waffle makers and waffle batter and freaking hash brown casserole, and we just did a freaking Cash Geeks breakfast in the office this morning. Just little fun things, right? Yeah, we can definitely do another one and just talk about how the business is now in a smaller scale, how we are truly implementing the Navy SEALs approach.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And how now what drives me is just my team, because before, you cared about everyone, but I got to the point, dude, in Cash Geeks where I wasn't involved in the interview process. I wasn't involved in the hiring process. And then I'd go and speak for, an event. I come back, 3 days later, and there's a new employee in my office. And I had never met them, at all. And hey, I'm Gonzalo. Welcome to the team, man. What's up? I'm one of the owners. Great to meet you. And it got to that point where, don't get me wrong, it was a great feeling. It was awesome, right? And I was like, holy crap, I'm at the point where I don't even meet my employees until after they're working, right? Or they've been here for 4 days, never met the owner yet, right?
Yeah.
It's damn, I've built this thing, right? So there's definitely pride in all that, but now it's it's the same people, and I have to take care of them. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not thinking about the next employee, right? I'm thinking about them. And so it's only pouring into those people right now on the team and how they can take the company and run with it, right? People like Hayden and my acquisition manager, disposition manager. We're doing a bunch of JVs and flipping houses. I've incorporated my acquisition manager to buying from other wholesalers now. So now he's reaching out to other people in the community yo, we're trying to buy. What do you got, right? And so incorporating the team into my vision, right? So that's a whole nother hour, dude.
Exactly. That's a whole other show. We were going to definitely bring you back on to hear that because I want to hear about the Navy SEALs. I want to hear about maybe a morphosis in your vision, and maybe you get to the point of I'm almost there, or I found it, or still working on it. And then whatever happens with you speaking more and what that result has also been about impact on people, impact on community, and of course, we got to do the shout out to the Jax community because the Jacksonville real estate community has been amazing. Shout out to everybody out there. I love having G on. I love that we get to do this. I love that we got to meet. And ever since I've been in Jacksonville, man, it's been so warm and welcoming. All the investors have been great here. I mean,
definitely not like Miami.
No, Miami's different. Miami is different. But G, as I do with guests that come in studio, on live, I have a shirt and a mug for you. So I want to present you the shirt, the Al Nicoletti shirt, show mug and shirt.
Oh, dude, this is nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, man. And then we got the mug right here.
Boom.
Look at that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, man.
This is awesome.
So now you can have your coffee at the office and think about the Al Nicoletti Show and the CashGeeks podcast.
Oh, that's awesome. And I came prepared too.
What do you have?
I got you a little something.
Ooh.
The new and improved.
Oh.
Little
Ooh, look at this.
Yeah, man.
I love it. Look at this.
That's for you, bro.
I'm going to put this on for sure, man.
Hell yeah,
Thank
man.
you, man.
No, this is awesome.
This is great.
Boom.
Look at that, everybody. We got it right here.
Dude, remember we had collab shirts?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Dude, I'm going to make a new one.
You remember what that was for, too? That
was remember what that was for.
Wasn't that for was it was the training. It was Cinco de Probate.
Cinco de Probate, that's right.
That was the craziest thing.
Dude. I mean, it was a blast building CashGeeks and doing all that and having all those meetings and having all that, being able to, just Cinco de Probate with Al Nicoletti in the office is freaking blast.
It was a blast, man.
We got to do another shirt.
Yeah, no, down. That'd be fun.
But thanks for having me on, man.
Gee, no, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're doing things with family, you're with business, you're with partners, and I'm sure your phone's gonna be blowing up as soon as the show's over. With people.
Absolutely.
But I want to say just truly, thank you for coming on here. Thank you for being a light in the community in real estate.
Thank you, man.
And for contributing out there and speaking out there. And, you're a big name out there. A lot of people know who you are and what you're doing, and you're impacting people. So
I appreciate that, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
As I do on my show at the end, I do a segment for all my guests called Final Words, Final Thoughts. It can be anything from 1 word to 2 minutes, a 5-minute rant. We've seen it. We've seen the weirdest things, the greatest things, and all of them are fantastic. So I want you to do one, and I want Final Words, Final Thoughts, Gonzalo Corzo.
Wow. Okay. Final words, final thoughts. Have tougher conversations with yourself. That is what my theme has been this year. And having true, tough conversations, calling yourself out, and that's what I'll leave it with, man. Yeah.
Perfect. Let it rip. G.
Awesome, bro.
Thanks so much for coming on,
sir.
man. We're gonna do this again for sure. I want to hear the update on what happens in the next year of what's going on in the G world.
And you're gonna be on the CashGeeks Network, right?
Hey,
soon.
You tell me when, man.
Okay, all right. We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen.
Yes,
we got to
yes,
do
yes.
that. It'd be so fun to catch up again.
All right, perfect. Done.
We'll catch up, man.
All right,
Thanks
man.
so much for being
Thanks,
on.
bro.
Love it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, G. All right, everybody. If you missed any of that episode with Gonzalo Corzo from Cash Geeks, what a story. You have to go back and watch that from the beginning. If you wondered what's been going on in G's world in the last year and a half, from all the interest rates, from Cash Geeks scaling up, scaling down, G's perspective on mindset and really finding purpose and vision. And it's not all about just deals, but finding what is your purpose. Where are you going? What is next in your industry? And it really can change people's mind. You got to go back and check that out. And of course, check out all the amazing guests on the Al Nicoletti Show. And you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And I just want to say, in final words, final thoughts, Al Nicoletti, I just want to say it's so great that we get to bring in guests like Gonzalo and have a sit down, a deep conversation. And you really get that feeling of, you can feel what these people have been going through, and they let it all out. They let it come out so you can really get a grasp of how it can impact you in your daily lives. So I hope you got a heavy dose of that from Gonzalo today. And I hope to see you next Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be another banger. So we'll see you all next week. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.